Why do people work? Do they work only for their private needs because of their need for homes and food and clothing for themselves and their families? Why do some people work when they have enough of all these things? Do they work for pleasure because making things, for example, gives them pleasure? Do some of them work for the public good? Why are some people happier when they are working? Isn't work one of their needs? Why do you work? Do you need to work to be happy? Do we know one another's needs? Aren't we in the dark about some of them? Private needs. Needs of one person or of a small number. Public good. Good of all. Isn't, is not. Aren't, are not. When isn't or aren't starts a question in a place of is or are, we are looking for the answer yes. In the dark. People aren't able to see in the dark. If all the people alive on the earth today were hand in hand like this, the line they would make would go much more than 50 times around the earth. The line of people would go out to the moon and back 5 times. It would be long enough to do that. But there isn't a line of people which goes out to the moon and back. And the people of the earth aren't hand in hand, far from it. That is why we said, or were, not are, and they would go, not they go. We say, if the angles in this triangle are equal, then the sides will be equal. But we say, if the angles in this triangle were equal, the sides would be equal. Triangle. This is another triangle. People are not hand in hand, but their minds today are being put increasingly into touch with one another through reading and writing, and in many other ways. We are in touch with other people everywhere through pictures of them. Newspapers and television give us photographs of almost everything. The faces of important people can be seen by the public everywhere. Before 1800, nobody could take photographs. Nobody had the idea of using the knowledge of how light is bent by glass to make pictures. Here is a camera which is taking a picture of a man. You will see that the picture inside the camera is upside down. Increasingly, more and more, photograph, picture taking with a camera, instrument for taking photographs. Another way in which people are getting to know more about one another is through the radio. Words were first sent from one place to another by telephone more than 100 years ago. A word can now go by telephone from the Atlantic to the Pacific in 1/12 of a second. A telephone needs wires, but the radio, which came into use almost 100 years ago, can send sounds any distance without wires. Television, TV, which is one of the great new powers, for good or bad, of our time, lets a public person talk to millions while they sit in their private homes seeing the person as if standing right there in front of them. Wire, thread of metal, talk, say things, sit, be seated. When you take a seat on something, you sit on it. Telephone, radio, television. See pictures on this page. Will talk, will sit, talk, sit, talks, sits, talked, sat. But people can't know what any person is saying if they don't know the language. Up to 100 years ago, few people needed to learn foreign languages because not many people went into foreign countries. Now, the need to learn other people's languages is becoming greater every day. Learn. Get knowledge of. Be learning. Foreign language. A language different from the language of your family. Foreign country. A country which is not yours. We learn, learn, learns, learned, learned. Today, millions of people, young and old, go into foreign countries every year on business or for pleasure. One can see babies in baskets being taken about by air every day. That is a quicker way to get about than on one's mother's back. Here is a woman who is carrying her baby on her back. She carries the child with her wherever she goes. In the last 100 years, people have learned to go over land and sea through the air as almost all birds and many insects can. People are carried through the air in airplanes. 1. A person, one's, a person's. Carrying, taking from place to place. Insect, these are insects. Will carry, carries, carried. Some birds have eyes which can see great distances, and they have good hearing. Some of them can hear sounds which we cannot hear. But people have made themselves new ears and new eyes. Today one can talk with a person at the other side of the earth by telephone. Through the radio one can hear sounds which come through space from thousands of miles away. One can see through a telescope the mountains on the moon, and through a microscope thousands of living things in a drop of water. Hear, take in sounds, use the sense of hearing. Space, distance between things, that in which all things are. Will hear, hear, hears, heard. Hundreds of millions of people today can see and hear on television and the radio important statements by public people, statements which in early times could have been heard by few. It is a question whether at any time in history one has been able to be heard by millions of people at the same time. Without the telephone, television, and the radio, a person can only be heard as far as the voice can carry. New instruments are making our homes less private and public men and women more public. No one knows what will come of this. One of the worst effects is that singers who are no singers and noisemakers of every sort can be heard in too many places. Whether, if or not, history, our past as we know it, the account or story of it, voice, sound made through the mouth, the power to make such sounds, sing, singers sing songs, will sing, sing, sings, sang, sung.